The moment Olivia Bennet stood in her wedding dress, staring at her reflection with tears streaming down her face, she knew. These weren't tears of joy, they were tears of realization. The diamond ring on her finger suddenly felt like a shackle rather than a promise. As she reached for her phone with trembling hands to call off her wedding to wealthy businessman Richard Harrington, her mind drifted to Thomas Carter, the quiet single father who worked in her department. The man whose gentle smile had been lighting up her darkest days for months now. The man she was truly in love with. Olivia's corner office overlooked the Manhattan skyline, the view a daily reminder of how far she'd climbed. At 32, she was the youngest chief marketing officer in her company's history. Her designer wardrobe, sleek bob, and confident stride made her the picture of success. But behind closed doors, exhaustion had become her closest companion. "Ms. Bennet, your 2 o'clock is here," her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Send them in," Olivia replied, straightening her blazer and plastering on her professional smile. The door opened to reveal Thomas Carter, clutching a portfolio. His navy blue shirt was slightly wrinkled, and his tie looked hastily knotted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, the telltale signs of a single parent burning the candle at both ends. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice warm despite his obvious fatigue. "School called. Sophie had a fever." Olivia's professional mask softened. "Is she okay?" "She will be. My neighbor's watching her now." He ran a hand through his dark hair, slightly too long for corporate standards. "I have the campaign drafts you requested." As Thomas spread the materials across her desk, Olivia found herself noticing things she shouldn't, the way his brow furrowed in concentration, how his eyes lit up when explaining a concept he was passionate about, the faint scent of his cologne mixed with coffee. "These are excellent," she said, genuinely impressed by his work. "You've captured exactly what we need." Thomas smiled, relief washing over his features. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." Their fingers brushed as he handed her the last document, and Olivia felt a jolt of electricity she immediately tried to dismiss. She was engaged to Richard, successful, handsome, socially connected Richard, who had proposed with a 3-carat diamond after a whirlwind 6-month romance. "How's the wedding planning going?" Thomas asked politely, packing up his materials. "It's happening," Olivia replied, twisting her engagement ring. 3 more weeks." Thomas nodded, his expression unreadable. "Richard's a lucky man." Something in his tone made her heart flutter traitorously. That evening, Olivia sat across from Richard at an exclusive restaurant, watching him charm the waiter and order without consulting her preferences. His phone buzzed constantly with business calls he deemed too important to ignore. "The Hendersons confirmed for the wedding," Richard said between calls. "Their attendance will be excellent for the firm's connections." Olivia nodded, pushing her barely touched salmon around her plate. "I was thinking about my vows today." Richard glanced up from his phone. "Oh, don't worry about that. I've asked my assistant to draft something appropriate for both of us. Nothing too emotional, keeps it classy." "You asked your assistant to write our wedding vows?" Olivia's voice rose slightly. Richard looked at her as if she were being unreasonable. "Darling, we're both busy professionals. It's efficient." Efficient. The word echoed in her mind as they rode home in silence. Was that what their relationship had become? A series of efficient transactions? The next morning, Olivia arrived at work earlier than usual, seeking solitude to clear her head. To her surprise, Thomas was already there, hunched over his desk in the still empty office. "Early bird?" she asked, stopping by his cubicle. He looked up, startled, then smiled. "Sophie had a good night, so I thought I'd get ahead on the Johnson account." "How old is Sophie now?" Olivia leaned against the partition. 8 going on 30, Thomas chuckled. "She informed me yesterday that my lunch packing skills are suboptimal, and offered to create a spreadsheet to improve efficiency." Olivia laughed genuinely for what felt like the first time in weeks. Sounds like a future CEO. She'd love to hear that from you. She thinks you're amazing, you know. Thomas's eyes held hers a moment too long. The way you worked your way up, how you lead the team. I might have mentioned you once or twice at home. Heat crept up Olivia's neck. I'd love to meet her sometime. The words slipped out before she could stop them, inappropriate in their implication of a future, of something beyond professional boundaries. Thomas's expression softened. She'd like that. Days passed, and Olivia found herself creating excuses to collaborate with Thomas. Their working lunches became the highlight of her weeks, conversations flowing effortlessly from marketing strategies to favorite books to Thomas's stories about Sophie. She saved up her allowance for 3 months to buy a telescope, Thomas said during one lunch, pride evident in his voice. Now our Friday nights are dedicated to stargazing and hot chocolate. That sounds perfect, Olivia said wistfully. Richard and I usually attend some function or another on Fridays. I can't remember the last time we just were. Thomas studied her face. Can I ask you something personal? Olivia nodded, her heart racing inexplicably. Are you happy, Olivia? The simple question hit her like a physical blow. When was the last time anyone had asked her that? When was the last time she had asked herself? I have everything I'm supposed to want, she answered carefully. Thomas didn't respond immediately, just held her gaze with those understanding eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed facade. Sophie asked me that once, he finally said. After her mother left us. I gave her almost the same answer. She was 5 then, but she looked at me and said, "That's not what I asked, Daddy." Olivia felt tears threatening and blinked them back. Smart girl. Too smart sometimes, Thomas smiled sadly. It took me a while to learn the difference between having what you're supposed to want and actually wanting what you have. That night, Olivia stood on her penthouse balcony, Richard's voice drifting from inside as he discussed seating arrangements with the wedding planner. Thomas's question echoed in her mind, "Are you happy, Olivia?" Her phone buzzed with a text from Thomas, "Sorry if I overstepped today. Not my place." She typed back before she could reconsider, "You didn't. No one's asked me that in a long time." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared, everyone deserves to be asked. Olivia stared at those 5 simple words until her vision blurred. The wedding countdown continued relentlessly. 12 days. 10 days. 7 days. Olivia moved through final fittings and tastings like a sleepwalker. At work, she found herself watching Thomas, how he mentored junior staff with patience, how he never missed a deadline despite his single-parent responsibilities, how his face lit up when Sophie called. 5 days before the wedding, disaster struck. The Johnson campaign, their biggest client, rejected the entire proposal at the final presentation. The team sat shell-shocked in the conference room as the client representatives left. "We have 48 hours to completely revamp this or we lose the account," Olivia announced, her voice steady despite her internal panic. The team worked through the night. By 3 a.m., only Olivia and Thomas remained, surrounded by coffee cups and discarded concepts. "This isn't working," Olivia groaned, dropping her head into her hands. Thomas pushed away from his laptop. "We need a break. 15 minutes to clear our heads." He disappeared and returned with 2 cups of terrible vending machine hot chocolate. "Sophie's emergency creativity booster," he explained with a tired smile. They sat in comfortable silence, sipping the overly sweet concoction. "Can I ask you something?" Olivia said suddenly. "Why did your marriage end?" Thomas looked surprised but answered honestly. "We wanted different things. Caroline wanted the career, the social life, the freedom. She wasn't ready for a child, for the reality of parenthood. One day she told me she felt trapped in a life she never really chose. That must have been devastating." It was, Thomas acknowledged. But looking back, I realize we were both pretending to be people we weren't. She was pretending she wanted the family life, and I was pretending not to notice she was unhappy. He met Olivia's eyes. The hardest part wasn't losing her, it was admitting we'd both been living a lie. Olivia felt the words pierce straight through her. How did you know when to stop pretending? When the cost of the lie became greater than the fear of the truth. Thomas's voice was gentle. Why are you asking, Olivia? She couldn't answer, couldn't form the words that would make her doubts real. Instead, she stood abruptly. We should get back to work. By dawn, they had created something new, a campaign built on authenticity rather than flash, on emotional connection rather than status. They presented it to the client the next day, running on caffeine and determination. The clients loved it. As congratulations flowed around the conference room, Thomas caught Olivia's eye across the table and smiled, a private moment of shared triumph. Later, as the office celebrated, Richard appeared unexpectedly, immaculate in his tailored suit. Thought I'd surprise you, he said, kissing Olivia's cheek. The caterer needs final approval on the menu changes. We just saved our biggest account, Olivia said. The team pulled an all-nighter. Richard glanced around dismissively. Well, that's what they're paid for, isn't it? Now about these menu changes. Olivia saw Thomas watching them, his expression carefully neutral as he turned away to chat with colleagues. Something inside her cracked. Can we discuss this later? She interrupted Richard. I'd like to celebrate with my team. Richard's smile tightened. Of course. I have a dinner meeting anyway. The car will pick you up for the rehearsal dinner tomorrow at 7. After he left, Olivia found herself gravitating toward Thomas, who was describing their creative breakthrough to colleagues. It was all Olivia, he said, his admiration evident. She saw what the client really needed, not just what they thought they wanted. We did it together, she corrected, warmth spreading through her at his genuine praise. As the celebration wound down, Thomas prepared to leave. Sophie's school play is tonight. I promised I wouldn't miss it. What's she playing? What's she playing? Olivia asked, walking him to the elevator. A star, Thomas grinned. Literally. She has one line about cosmic dust. Olivia laughed. She'll be the most brilliant star in the galaxy. The elevator arrived, but Thomas hesitated before stepping in. Olivia, about your wedding. I just want to say, he stopped, conflict evident in his expression. What? She prompted, her heart racing. He shook his head. Nothing. Just. I hope you find what you're looking for. The elevator doors closed, leaving Olivia staring at her reflection in the polished metal, wondering why his words felt like both a blessing and a goodbye. The rehearsal dinner was a blur of faces and small talk. Olivia smiled until her cheeks hurt, accepted congratulations, and tried to ignore the growing hollowness inside her. Richard worked the room like the skilled networker he was, occasionally steering Olivia toward important guests like an accessory to be displayed. You seem distracted, Richard commented as they rode home. Is it work? Just tired, Olivia replied. The Johnson account took a lot out of me. Richard nodded absently, already scrolling through emails. Well, after tomorrow you can take a breather. 2 weeks in Bali, then back to normal. Normal. The word struck Olivia like a physical blow. Was this what normal would be? Efficient partnerships, strategic social appearances, parallel lives occasionally intersecting? That night, she lay awake beside Richard's sleeping form, remembering Thomas's words, when the cost of the lie became greater than the fear of the truth. What was her truth? Wedding day dawned bright and clear. Olivia stood in the bridal suite of the Plaza Hotel, surrounded by bridesmaids and stylists. Her dress, a designer creation that had been featured in Vogue, hung waiting. Everything was perfect, exactly as planned. So why couldn't she breathe? I need a minute, she gasped, escaping to the bathroom where she leaned against the cool marble, fighting panic. Her phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Henderson's bringing potential investors to reception. Wear the sapphire earrings, they'll complement their corporate colors. Before she could respond, another message appeared, from Thomas, just wanted to wish you happiness today. You deserve every joy. Simple. Sincere. No agenda, no expectations. Olivia stared at the two messages side by side, and suddenly everything became crystal clear. With shaking hands, she called Richard. Bit busy, darling. Can it wait? He answered distractedly. No, Olivia said, her voice stronger than she expected. It can't. 20 minutes later, she sat across from Richard in a private room, still in her robe, her elaborate updo the only indication of the ceremony that should have been starting soon. This is ridiculous, Richard said, checking his watch. 300 people are waiting. I can't marry you, Olivia said simply. Richard stared at her as if she'd started speaking another language. Of course you can. Everything's arranged. That's the problem. Everything's been arranged, the perfect proposal, the perfect wedding, the perfect life. But none of it feels real. Olivia twisted off her engagement ring. We're not in love, Richard. We're in a business merger. Don't be dramatic, Richard scoffed. We make sense together. Making sense isn't enough. Not for forever. Richard's expression hardened. Is there someone else? Olivia hesitated, then decided on complete honesty. There's the possibility of someone else. Someone who sees me, really sees me. That marketing guy, Richard said flatly. The one with the kid. Olivia didn't deny it. I'm sorry. You deserve someone who loves you for you, not for what you represent. Surprisingly, Richard's anger seemed to deflate. You know what's ironic? I thought you were the practical one. The one who understood that marriage is about building something advantageous. Maybe it should be about more than that, Olivia said gently. After Richard left to make the humiliating announcements, Olivia sat alone, feeling simultaneously terrified and lighter than she had in years. Monday morning, Olivia walked into the office, aware of the whispers and stares. News of her cancelled wedding had spread like wildfire. She held her head high, though her stomach churned with anxiety. Thomas wasn't at his desk. He called in sick, her assistant informed her. First time in 3 years, apparently. Disappointment crashed through Olivia. Of course he wouldn't want to face the awkwardness. She'd thrown away her perfect wedding days after their emotional connection during the Johnson crisis. He probably thought she was unstable, impulsive. The day dragged endlessly. By evening, Olivia had convinced herself she'd made a terrible mistake. She'd destroyed her relationship with Richard based on a fantasy about a man who was now avoiding her. As she prepared to leave, her phone rang, an unknown number. Ms. Bennett? A young voice asked. This is Sophie Carter. Olivia nearly dropped her phone in surprise. Sophie? How did you? I'm using Daddy's phone while he's in the shower, the girl said matter-of-factly. He's been sad all weekend, and it's because of you. What? He likes you. A lot. But he thinks you're getting married, and he says it's wrong to like someone who's getting married. But my friend Zoe at school said her mom heard from her mom who works at your company that you didn't get married after all. Olivia couldn't help smiling at the child's directness. That's true. I didn't. So you should tell him, Sophie stated as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Because he's the best daddy ever, and he deserves to be happy, and he's happy when he talks about you. Tears pricked Olivia's eyes. Where are you, Sophie? At home. We live in the apartment building on Maple Street. Apartment 4B. He makes really good spaghetti if you're hungry. Olivia laughed through her tears. Sophie, you are extraordinary. I know, the girl replied matter-of-factly. Oh. I hear the water turning off. I have to go. Remember, 4B. The line went dead, leaving Olivia staring at her phone, heart racing. Before she could overthink it, she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. The building on Maple Street was modest but well-maintained. Olivia stood outside apartment 4B, her confidence wavering. What if Sophie had misinterpreted her father's feelings? What if Thomas was just being kind? Before she could retreat, the door swung open. Thomas stood there in jeans and a faded t-shirt, his hair damp from the shower, looking as surprised as she felt. Olivia? I was just... She faltered, suddenly unsure. Dad? Is that Miss Bennet? Sophie's voice called from inside. She appeared beside her father, grinning triumphantly. I told you she might come over. Thomas's eyes widened in understanding. Sophie Carter, did you call my boss? Technically, I called her from your phone, which you said I could use for emergencies, Sophie replied, unrepentant. And this was definitely an emergency. You've been moping. Thomas closed his eyes briefly, mortified. I'm so sorry about this. Don't be, Olivia said softly. I'm glad she called. Their eyes met, and the hallway seemed to fade away. Sophie looked between them and sighed dramatically. I'm going to set the table for 3 instead of 2. Adults are so slow sometimes. She disappeared back into the apartment. Thomas shook his head, a smile tugging at his lips. She's grounded until college, just so you know. She's perfect, Olivia countered. And very perceptive. Thomas's expression grew serious. Olivia, I heard about the wedding. I'm sorry if... I'm not, she interrupted. I couldn't marry Richard when I realized I had feelings for someone else. Thomas went very still. Someone else? Someone who sees the real me. Someone who asks if I'm happy and actually cares about the answer. She took a deep breath. Someone whose daughter thinks he makes really good spaghetti. A slow smile spread across Thomas's face. She's biased. My spaghetti is mediocre at best. I'd like to judge for myself, Olivia said, her heart in her throat. Thomas reached out, gently taking her hand. I should warn you, if you come in, Sophie's going to ask about 100 questions, most of them embarrassingly direct. I can handle it if you can, Olivia replied, squeezing his hand. Dad! The spaghetti's getting cold. Sophie called from inside. Thomas laughed, the sound warming Olivia from within. Fair warning given. Welcome to the chaos. As she stepped into their home, Olivia felt something settle inside her, a certainty she'd never experienced before. This wasn't the life she'd planned, not the path she'd mapped out so carefully. It was better. 6 months later, Olivia sat on a blanket in the park, watching Thomas and Sophie set up their telescope for their Friday night stargazing tradition, now expanded to include her. Olivia. Come see. Sophie waved excitedly. Dad found Jupiter. As Olivia joined them, Thomas slipped his arm around her waist. Happy, he whispered. She leaned into him, remembering how that simple question had changed everything. Completely. Later, after Sophie had fallen asleep between them on the blanket, Thomas took Olivia's hand. I've been thinking. Dangerous, she teased. Very, he agreed with a smile that made her heart race. I was thinking that maybe it's time we became a family officially. If you want that. If you're ready. Olivia looked at him under the vast canopy of stars, at Sophie sleeping peacefully beside them, and knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. I've never been more ready for anything in my life, she whispered. As Thomas kissed her beneath the stars, Olivia thought about the wedding she'd cancelled and the whispered truth that had set her free. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit your